Hi, welcome to Week in Review. I'm Phil O'Connor, the Live Enterprise Director here at the Oklahoman. I'm joined this week by our faithful compatriots. I got Dale Denwald from the Capitol over visiting us. From the Sports Department, I have Editor Ryan Sharp, and of course my old friend Don Mecoy, the Business Editor. Again, we got a lot going on this week. Let's get to Dale at the Capitol. A lot of news out of the Capitol this week. Let's start with the bill, the science bill, about how we should be teaching science in school.
Yeah, so yesterday the Science Education Act it's a little bit longer name than that, but they passed it out of a House committee. It was originally in the House Education Committee, but it wasn't going to get a hearing there, and it eventually moved to the General Government Committee. A little bit of sausage making for you. I don't know if you care for that, but it passed by a really narrow vote, 4-3. What the bill does is it basically lets teachers foster a discussion in their classrooms about the controversies of science. And some people are worried that that could mean teachers teaching creationism, and intelligent design, and discrediting climate change. And there's a lot of, pretty much every science organization, science education organization has come out against the bill.
So who's pushing it? Who are the backers of the bill?
I think typically you're going to find people who want to be able to teach the controversy in the classroom and say that the science isn't settled on evolution or on climate change.
And so what kind of pushback does that get from, I mean, is this a rural-urban split in the legislature? Is this more, I mean, is there widespread support for something like this, or what's the debate?
I don't think there's so much of a urban-rural split as much as it is, do you want your teachers to be able to have a discussion about creationism as a viable scientific theory in classrooms? It's probably what it comes down to. Also, climate change. There's a lot of folks that say the science isn't settled on climate change, even though something like 98% of scientists agree that it's happening and that humans are causing it.
I think it's even a little higher than that,
yeah.
But okay. Well, let's talk about some other stuff that's going on at the Capitol.
Sure.
More cuts. Of course, we're in the midst of a budget crisis, and again, this week, further cuts announced.
Well, it should really come as no surprise that the state has to borrow a little bit more money to get to the end of the year. Preston Dorflinger, our finance secretary, came out and said that tax revenues just aren't coming in like we expected it to. Last year the legislature appropriated so much money for agencies to spend, and we have to reach that amount in tax revenue. And when we don't, we still have these obligations out that we've got to pay for. So he's got to go to existing funds, savings accounts, things like that, and borrow the money from there. And he announced just a couple days ago that he had to borrow $31 million out of a railroad improvement fund from the Department of Transportation. Now all this has to be paid back by the end of the year, and they expect it to be paid back with money that the state's going to get when people pay their taxes this month.
We've already exhausted the rainy day fund.
That's right.
Correct. So we're going to pay this back with the tax revenues that we're anticipating to receive. Mm-hmm. And if I'm remembering right, tax receipts just continue to go down, right? And we haven't really seen a recovery
Mostly
yet.
Sales tax. Mostly sales tax and corporate income tax that's paid monthly. The individual income tax, people, a lot of folks will pay that in April. Make their final payments in April, and also any amounts that people owe to the state from underpayment of taxes throughout the year.
We are going to be talking about the budget problem for some time, I have a feeling. So, and one of the fallouts of that, again, is that the state is having to look at, again, another rate cut for providers of Medicare or
Medicaid,
Medicaid in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically a provider rate cut, if you don't know what that means, it's basically money that the government pays to doctors to see you if you're on Medicaid. Right now, the Medicaid provider reimbursement rate is at a certain level, but Oklahoma is lower than that because we've had to cut the reimbursement rate because of just a lack of revenue. And right now, the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, it's the state agency that administers Medicaid, they are starting the process to implement provider rate cuts. Now they have to start this process really early because there's a lot of notification and public hearings that have to happen. So they have to start several months before they actually know what they're going to get in the budget.
And we've had several rate cuts over the recent years, correct?
Right.
And the problem with that in the end is that physicians choose to no longer provide services to Medicaid patients,
Right. So
which then creates a problem with not enough medical care for low-income Oklahomans.
Sure. Well, think about it. If you're a doctor and say half of your patients are on Medicaid, and the state says, okay, we're going to cut what we pay you for each Medicaid case. We're going to cut you 25% off of that. That's the number that's being thrown around. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. We'll see. But that's kind of the worst case scenario. And so think about it. If you're a doctor and your own personal income relies on that, are you going to start taking any more Medicaid patients?
Yeah, the dilemma of the budget and the impact it's having on people all across the state is just, it's going to go on for quite some time. We'll keep an eye on that. So, hey, Don, let's turn to Tapstone Energy going public this week.
Yeah, they filed their S-1 registration with the SEC, which allows them to issue stock. And Tapstone Energy, for people who may not recall, was a company that was founded by Tom Ward. Tom Ward was one of the co-founders of Chesapeake. He left Chesapeake and started up what became Sandridge Energy, and then had a shareholder revolt and was sort of ousted at Sandridge, and launched Tapstone a couple of years ago, I think 4 years ago, and then in December he stepped down as the CEO of Tapstone, and a new guy came in, Steve Dixon, who used to be at Chesapeake and is running the place now. And they issued that they're looking to go public and may raise up to $100 million through this stock offering. These forms, just kind of inside baseball, that a lot of this information is left blank about share price and things like that. So things could change, but they do say they could raise up to $100 million. And what it shows us is, one of the things is that we have these exploration companies which really kind of went dormant when prices got so low that it simply wasn't profitable to drill and even to produce what you had already drilled. They're looking to drill again with these prices, leveling out a little over $50 a barrel. And Tapstone, that was one of the things that was clear in this filing, was we want to drill some wells.
Where does the optimism come from for these drillers in Oklahoma, knowing that you have this massive oil supply on the world market? Prices are not expected to rise too much in the coming year, I don't think. So what is it that they see that makes them think that this is a viable time to gear back up?
Well, I mean, things got so bad. I mean, you go back to the February of 2016, it got down to $26 a barrel, and then it has come back up, and OPEC pledged to cut back on production, and even the Russians did as well, and they did, and they have continued to do so. But domestic producers have really geared up now. They really want to get out and drill and produce, and nevertheless, and as we've seen domestic production increase, that price, which got back over $50 a barrel, has remained fairly stable. And I think most people are expecting it to stay there. And even there were some government estimates that came out this week from the Energy Department that said, we're looking at maybe, it may go up to $60 a barrel in the next year or so. So I think there's a limited amount of optimism about, where we're going, but there's a certain amount of security about where we are right now. And if you're in the right fields, which there's, the Scoop and the Stack in Oklahoma are really good places to drill. And at $50, you can make money producing oil in Oklahoma. And Tapstone has some property in some of that good area, that sweet spot.
Well, maybe we need more of that happening so that we have less of these kinds of stories from Dale about the financial crisis that the state finds itself in. Let's turn to sports. Big weekend for the Thunder. It all starts the march to the championship.
Indeed, we're finally here. So we've had 82 regular season games to get to this point, and what a matchup right out of the gate. You've got the two favorites for the MVP going against each other. You've got two teams with a lot of history. Pat Beverly and Russell Westbrook certainly have their share of history. It should be a fantastic matchup.
And the prodigal son comes home.
Yeah,
the beard back in town.
James Harden will be back in town next week. It's the series is pretty spread out. So they go Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday for the first 4 games. So a lot of time in between. Should be nothing but entertaining. You're going to see a lot of lineups for the Thunder that you probably haven't seen this year. Some guys getting more playing time just because of matchups and how things work. Jeremy Grant will be a guy that probably gets a lot more playing time than he has for most of the season. The Rockets like to play small and shoot a lot of threes, so that doesn't really go well with the Thunder's big lineup of Adams and Canner and those guys playing a whole lot. So the Thunder's probably going to have to go small to kind of combat that a little bit.
What's the Thunder's health look like going into this thing?
Not too bad. Robertson was dinged up a little bit last week, but they're expecting all their guys to play. Same thing with the Brenish, expected to play. I think they're in pretty good shape.
And then we had sort of a magical moment this week with the Big O coming into town to sort of pass the torch.
That was really cool. Of course, we followed Westbrook all season long, wondering if he was going to get to it. So he gets to it with a game left in the season, or a home game left in the season. So Oscar Robertson comes to town, speaks to the crowd before the game, starts an MVP chant for Russell Westbrook. It was a really cool moment that I think Westbrook legitimately appreciated. It's hard to kind of get a feel for that guy sometimes, how he leans one way or the other, but I think he legitimately appreciated Robertson coming. That's not a guy that's been real quick to praise today's generation of NBA players. But that was a special moment for Russell Westbrook and the Thunder.
Yeah. And speaking of special moments, we've got a great poster in today's paper that the Thunder provided. It's a great action photo of Russell doing what Russell does. And you can only get that in the Oklahoman, so pick up a copy today. I think you'll enjoy what you find there. Look for us online at newsok.com, 24/7, 365. We're always there. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Talk to you then.